Hello everyone, my name is Jennifer and welcome to Best Kept Plans. Today's video is going to be a September 2024 budget recap using the printable version of the Budget by Paycheck workbook from the Budget Mom. If you're interested in seeing that, please stick around. As I said in my introduction, we're doing a budget recap for the month of September 2024. I thought we'd start out in my monthly spread. I did have 2 paychecks in September. They were basically halfway through the month and right before the end of the month because last month was a 3 paycheck month for me, so I got paid right at the end of August. As you can see, everything on this monthly spread is checked off. I'm actually filming the video on the 29th. I just saw Audible get deducted from my checking account this morning, which is great. So everything has been paid for September. If we cut forward, we're going to start out with talking about my debt payment plan. Now, this page in the Budget by Paycheck workbook is one that I don't really have a ton of experience with. I really didn't start filling it out until sometime last year, I believe. And I don't know that I still have a great grasp on it, but I am actively trying to use it. So I currently have 2 sources of debt. I have Sikorsky, which is my car loan. I owe about $7,000, a little over $7,000. My interest rate is quite low. My minimum payment is a little over $450 a month. That to me is my number one debt priority. It's a lower amount, and even though it has a lower interest rate, there's reasons why I actively want to pay that off before my student loans. Nelnet are my student loans. I have about $30,500 left to pay. The interest rate is a little over 5%. My monthly payment, it's actually quite high. It's almost $700, but what I usually pay as my monthly payment is $400. And the reason why it's not that full amount is because currently my employer is contributing to my student loan payoff. They are giving me $4,000 a year over 5 years. So that goes towards my minimum monthly payment. So I can pay less out of my own pocket monthly for my payment. I did focus on debt quite a bit in the month of September though. It was a huge priority for me to use the extra income that I've made in the month of September through working some overtime shifts towards debt. So I made an extra Sikorsky payment of $1,200, an extra Sikorsky payment of $500, and an extra Sikorsky payment of $250. I made an extra Nelnet payment of $1,200, $500, and then my employer paid $333.33. All of this extra debt plus my normal monthly payments added up to $4,840.18. Now, this whole monthly debt progress section down here, this is a little bit of a guesstimate because I didn't close out my budget in August, so I really didn't know what to put here. So basically what I did is I figured out my monthly debt total for this month, and then I just added $4,840.18 to it to get this number. That's not going to be super accurate because that doesn't take into account interest, right? So this isn't super accurate for this month, but hopefully next month moving forward, it will be more accurate. It basically states that I made 6.8% progress towards paying off my debt in the month of September. Now my overall debt section is definitely much more accurate. This number here is not the number of when my debt was the highest, like when I first started paying my student loans off. It's actually the number of what my debt was at in June 2022 when I purchased my new car. This month, obviously, my new debt balance is listed here, $37,853.77. Overall, I've paid off just over $33,000 of debt, so I've made 46.6% progress, getting closer and closer to 50%, which is very, very exciting. Next page we have is my monthly net worth tracker. Now, this one as well is not the most accurate. What I did at the top here for last month's net worth, since I did not figure out my net worth in August, is I looked back at my last budget in 2024 that I closed out, and that was actually March. March 2024 was the last budget that I closed out this year. That was 6 months ago. It was kind of wild to realize that. And my net worth in March was $299,859.01. So we kind of use that to base everything off of. We already know what my liabilities are because we talked about them on the last page. In terms of my assets, I certainly don't mind sharing my total assets down here, but I do keep the exact amounts for each of those categories to myself. So for the month of September, my assets totaled $392,773.73. And if I subtract my liabilities from that, my net worth was $354,919.96, which is an increase of about $55,000 in the last 6 months, or 18.4%. Now we have flipped the page and we're going to focus on the Where Did My Money Go worksheets, and my favorite of those worksheets, which is the monthly budget category breakdown. So first thing is figuring out our monthly inflow. I had a starting balance of $4,591.91. That is really high, but that's because I got paid right at the end of August, so I moved a lot of money over to September. My earned income is the income from my full-time job. Now, this is a little bit higher than normal because I have been working some overtime, and that total is $7,422.53. Other income was primarily the $333.33 that my employer pays towards my student loan, but I also had a couple of Amazon returns that I made in the month of September that added into that. And then I did use savings from 4 different sinking funds in the month of September that added up to $609. If all of that gets added together, we do have my monthly inflow, which for September was $13,168.74. Now, we have all of my categories here and the breakdown of everything. Starting off with groceries, I budget my groceries to be $400. I actually spent $533.33, so I was over budget by over $100. I am finding that in the last few months, I'm spending more on groceries. I think a lot of people feel that way because in general, groceries are costing more. I have also found that there are several items that I do like to always have available for myself to eat. Certain types of protein bars, certain types of chips, other stuff. And I do have several of those things on Amazon's kind of like auto buy, and I find that because of that, I'm spending more on groceries. So groceries is definitely a category where I'm actually going to really look at it for 2025 to figure out if I should be upping that budget. Eating out, I have a $200 budget. I utilized $171.27, so I was under budget by a little under $30. Spent a lot of money on gas in September, and that's because I actually drove to New Hampshire to see my sister and drove back. I also drove about an hour away to go to a basketball game and drove back. So those are longer trips that I generally am not going to take throughout the month, and that's why I ended up spending $126 on gas, under budget, but definitely more than I usually spend. I was way under budget with miscellaneous. This is cash spending from my miscellaneous envelope specifically. Only spent $96, so I was under budget by about $250. Miscellaneous bills, that is all of their miscellaneous spending that usually comes out of my checking account. And I did a lot of it. I did an absolute lot of it in the month of September. For savings, I always want to save about half of my income. Now, obviously, my earned income is a little bit higher right now because of all the overtime I've been working. So usually I've been doing $3,000 as my budgeted goal. I may have to change that because I am due for an annual raise coming up soon and everything. But I did save over that $3,000 by about $600, which is always a good thing. Utilities budget is $350. I spent $364. That's because my Optimum actually went up. It went up back in June. I wish that it was lower. I need to try to call them and see if I can find a way to make it lower. but I was technically over budget by about $15. Personal was under budget, and I'm not quite sure why. I don't know if I forgot to factor something into personal and put it somewhere else instead, but I was under budget by $12. Housing is my rent. That was right on budget. Giving is just my church contribution of $20. And then debt. My normal car payment plus my student loan payment is about $850, and I put over $4,500 towards debt. So definitely was over budget there, but that's a great thing. We have my 4 sinking funds listed down here: gifts, car maintenance, subscriptions, household, very basic stuff, and all of those values are listed here. We also have my October starting balance listed. This is any money that I'm going to be rolling over from September into October. That's usually going to be in my checking account, variable expense checking account, and my cash. And all of that added up to $831.58. Now, if we add all of my categories together plus that starting balance, it should equal my inflow. And fortunately for September, it matched perfectly, which means that I was off by $0, which is always great. Now, the last page that we're going to be looking at is the September monthly debt and savings breakdown. And let's focus on debt first. I basically put 36.8% of my inflow towards debt this month, which is very, very exciting. And with the way that it ended up breaking down, I did put a little bit more, 50.3% towards my student loan versus 49.7% towards my car loan. And that's just because that third extra debt payment that I made, I put lower towards my car than my job put towards my student loan. Looking over at savings, we definitely have a little bit more going on here. First of all, we always go based off of income for savings. We don't go based off of inflow. Inflow includes the savings that you used in the month. And so when we're talking about how much we saved, we don't want to factor in savings that we also used. So my inflow for September was $12,559.74. I saved over $3,000. That was 28.8% of my income, which I think is great. I restarted my 2025 sinking funds. So my sinking funds total here is high. It's $1,505. That also included a payout from YouTube, and that was almost 42% of my savings. Next, I had my 2024 challenge, which I contributed $160 to, my 52-week challenge, which I contributed $58 to, my $5 challenge, which got $60. But the next amount that's really large and the largest in my savings category is my house savings, which I put $1,722.12 towards. Almost 50% of what I saved went towards my house savings, which is really, really great. And then lastly, we have my emergency fund. It got $109 in the month of September. Now, there is a third Where Did My Money Go worksheet. It's this monthly spending comparison sheet. I didn't fill this in because I don't have an August budget to compare it to because I didn't close off my budget in August. I also have decided I'm not going to utilize this sheet as much because come 2025, the new Budget by Paycheck Workbook doesn't actually have this sheet in it. I'm honestly not even sure if it has this sheet in it. I know that it definitely has the monthly budget category breakdown in it though. So I don't think I'll be using that spending comparison sheet as much because in 2025, I'm actually making some big changes to my budget in the sense that I am going to go back to using a physical copy of the Budget by Paycheck Workbook. For 2025, she's offering a smaller version of the Budget by Paycheck Workbook, which I think is really intriguing and interesting. I also loved the floral design on the cover, so I decided to give it a try. Now, I'm not sure how it's going to go. I haven't used a physical copy of the Budget by Paycheck Workbook in years, and I've always really loved using this printable version because I can put it on discs, I can take out pages, put in pages, but something was telling me to go with something that's already put together for you, to take some of the kind of annoyance of having to print out all the sheets and organize and set up everything off of myself and use the printable version or the printed version. So I did purchase the printed version already. It should be shipping to me next month in October. I will start using it in January, and I'm very, very excited about that. If you have any questions about the way that I budget or how I use the Budget by Paycheck workbook from the Budget Mom, please don't hesitate to put a comment down below. And as always, everyone, please be safe. Bye-bye.